Hey guys, we're back, and today we're going to be talking about Daredevil, which you can probably tell from the title, and we're actually going to be discussing the philosophy of Daredevil. But before I get into that topic, I'm just going to say a couple little things. The first of all being, we have a podcast that's in the pipeline, and it's been there for roughly a couple months now, and the only reason we're actually uploading it is because it has our Infinity War review, which tells you just how old it is, and just to give you some forewarning about that, it does actually have like a lot of time references in it towards how before Solo comes out, before Deadpool, which just says how old it is, because I think we recorded it on something like the 1st, 2nd of May, because we both of us saw it reasonably early on, I think. It's some date like that, after we'd both seen it, and our mysterious editor had also seen it, which unfortunately he's not featuring in it, or is it a she? Anyway, yeah, they're not featuring in it. They probably won't be featuring anything for a long time, because yeah. Anyway, now I've talked about that, I just wanted to say that for the next roughly 10 weeks, you can probably expect at least one video per week, because exams and stuff is all finished up for all of us now, so that's good. And I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to say before we get started. And yeah, oh yeah, the next major podcast we do is going to be either a Deadpool 2 review, which should be very hard considering I don't think any of us have actually seen it yet. A Cloak and Dagger review, I want to do that because I love Cloak and Dagger, and all of you who haven't watched it should go watch it now, because why are you listening to this podcast instead of watching Cloak and Dagger, I ask. Yes, I do. Now go watch that, then come back. Anyway, it will either be Cloak and Dagger in Deadpool 2, most likely it will be Solo and Last Jedi, because Last Jedi doesn't deserve its own podcast, it's just that unimportant, and probably some minor topics like that. Also, we're going to be talking about the DC streaming service, but before, I just want to mention really quickly in detail for this one, that the DC streaming service is going to be releasing next year. There's been a trailer out for it, and so far confirmed series are Swamp Thing live action, Doom Patrol, Harley Quinn, Titans, Young Justice Outsiders, and I think there might be a couple others as well, but it looks really cool and the trailer's cool. I reckon it'll be quite expensive though, because it's got comics and everything on it. But anyway, go check out that trailer, and you know, that's all some stuff you can do in your spare time. Anyway, now, let's get on to the topic of the video. So, as it happens, we are talking about the philosophy of Daredevil. And for all of you who don't know, Daredevil is my favourite ever comic book character, full stop. Just character in general, whether it be Star Wars or... Well, no, okay, fine. Darth Nihilus is my favourite ever character, if you want to pick straws. But you get the idea. Daredevil is my favourite Marvel/DC superhero sort of dude. And today I'm really excited to be talking to you about his mental philosophies and moralities, etc, 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 which is very interesting considering Daredevil's religion and his, like, friends or associates. So to start with, we're going to talk about his general moralities and his, like, which is actually quite similar to Batman, as he is very much against killing, but very, very into the whole beat them to hell sort of thing, which may be where he gets his name, the Devil of Hell's Kitchen. You see what I did there? Beat them to hell. Yeah, okay, fine. Anyway, that's the whole idea of the devil and hell is actually going to have a lot to do with the religious aspects of Daredevil, which I will cover later on. Anyway, so Daredevil follows this concept of not killing and just harming to a point where the person can't harm anyone else, and this actually plays quite a major role, especially in the I think it was the Mark Waid run when he was working with the Punisher, and I want to say it was Elsa Bloodstone, but it might not have been. It was another girl that was kind of like a bit like the Punisher. I might have got the name mixed up then. I'm awfully sorry if I did, for any Punisher fans, like our mysterious editor. I'm sorry if you had to listen to that. Anyway, point being that Daredevil is very strong with the no killing rule, and he has to emphasize this quite heavily when he's with the Punisher. It ends up causing like a full on like fight, and it causes a lot of conflict within the issue, which creates, or not issue, within the volume, which creates a very good dynamic between the two of them, because it shows how uneasy the actual relationships are. And that also continues on into the Netflix show. For any of you who have watched that, it's actually really good. I would highly recommend watching it. It's obviously not as good as the comics, but what can I say? The way that Punisher operates in that, Matt Murdock and Daredevil, they have both a very difficult time with the person in themselves. Like, Matt Murdock struggles to see him as a good guy. There's like people like Karen Page are pushing him on. So it's quite interesting to see how Daredevil reacts with this whole killing rule, and how it can actually, he finds it to denounce someone's ability to be a good guy, possibly because of how, like, you know, saying, oh yeah, he kills people, it's like making you as bad as the people you're stopping, you know. It's this whole idea of like levels of goodness or something, which actually very well links into the religion of Daredevil, as many of you guys may or may not have heard of Dante's Inferno, which is a drawing done by the artist Dante, and it goes into detail about the 7 levels of hell, and it's like, it's a lot to do with Catholic, heavy religious Catholic and just general Christian images of hell. And I think that's quite interesting because, as we know, Matt Murdock is a very heavy Catholic, and this whole idea of not going down to that level is a lot like not going down to that level of hell, supposedly, which I think is quite a cool way of working around with his moralities in that area. But also, a very interesting thing about the way that Daredevil operates is he's fine with beating them up, you know. Like, he isn't like Spider-Man, who just kind of webs them up and runs away and calls the police, which is, speaking of Spider-Man and Daredevil have a very interesting dynamic between them, because they're very contrasting characters. One of them's very cheerful, one of them's very sad, but they're really good friends within the universe of Marvel. So that's another good example of how Daredevil's morality contrasts with another one, as he believes it's okay to, you know, literally send these criminals to hell and back, but not as long as you're not killing them. He's like, it's a very fine line for him, and I think it's something that is very easy to cross, which you see a lot in the comics with this whole emphasis on not killing. And it's kind of similar to the way that Batman tries not to kill, but unfortunately he does sometimes. And this idea that Batman does it as well to move himself a level higher than the villains he's fighting, so he's not as bad as them, but he's still bad, is what they're basically both acknowledging, that they are not good people. And I think that's something that's seen very heavily within especially the early 2000s runs of Daredevil, which is a very weird time for comic books, but that's like a whole nother video. And it's when he lost Karen Page to Bullseye, and then we had the very weird films, etc. But the early 2000s periods, there was a lot to do with Daredevil's like morality aspects, and then like how good is he, or is he bad, etc. And then this is also seen a lot within the Shadowlands storyline, where Daredevil turned to, he basically got possessed by a demon from the Hand, and it gave him like really extreme strengths and stuff, but it took him to the level where he was just going to kill and murder and stuff. So he has obviously broken that rule multiple occasions in the past, but it's really this it shows how it's easy it is to push someone over the edge. It only needs a little demon or something. That's a really bad example, I just realised, but like, I think it's a very good way of showing how Daredevil really is just on the fine line of falling over into the next level of hell, as it's put in Dante's Inferno, which is of course a very, very heavy religious imagery, which I think I'll be going into more detail of later. But I think the way that Daredevil reacts to most people is quite interesting, because he pretends like he's the good guy, you know, he acts good, but he knows he's not. So it's this, he's in some sort of self-denial with himself, which is very interesting, as it shows his like his lack of thought processes on certain matters, and how he struggles to deal with things, which is seen a lot. He really struggles with the way he deals in with a lot of scenarios, and especially again in the Mark Waid series. I can't recommend Mark Waid's Daredevil enough. It's just amazing. It's this really different but really good take on the character, and as seen in that, he doesn't talk to anyone about his problems. They just build up and up and up until they're too much to handle, and then he almost ends up like losing everything, or he does lose everything over them. He loses so much and gains so much. It's this really good roller coaster of events that is a result of his lack of communication, and it's very interesting to see how there's lack of communication with anyone else, and how he chooses to work alone, and how he blocks people out of his life. It's really interesting to see how it affects him, because it affects his romantic relationships. Like people like Black Widow, he shut her out of her life. He shut her out of his life even, just so that she wouldn't get her, and things like that. Even though she was still an assassin effectively, he's pushing these people away from him because he knows he's a threat, and he knows he's dangerous. It's this really interesting mindset that people have, where they think that it's better to shut themselves off from the world so that they don't hurt the world, and it's actually emphasised really well through a lot of Daredevil's writing. Obviously there has been some more shoddy moments in that writing, but I'm talking about the good stuff. Of obviously this whole video audio cast thing, whatever you want to call this, because I don't know if it's really worthy of the title podcast, but whatever you want to call this, is based off of the idea that basically all the Daredevil stories I'm going to be focusing on are mostly good, or in my opinion good. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. Anyways, I really want to talk about next is Daredevil's, just like his religion, and how he's like this really devout Catholic, which very well parodies his actions. Because for all of you who don't know, Daredevil is his name derives from devil, and devil is the name for Satan, or Lucifer, who is the angel that fell from heaven when he disagreed with God. And this basically has a lot to do with anti-Christianity, anti-Christ, anti-Catholicism, or all of these things usually come under the term of Satanism, which is a very, very heavy insult to Catholicism. It's like being Hitler and then being a Jew. It's two polar opposites of each other. Okay, I know that was a really bad example, but you get the picture. It's like you can either be a Catholic, or a Protestant, and they're kind of opposite. But then you have the total opposite, which is what's the word? I was saying it a second ago as well. I'm really bad at remembering words, but it was Satanism. That's it. It's like you can't be more opposing to Catholicism than Satanism, which is very interesting, because it's showing how, although he is a Catholic, everything he does, he is opposing his own religion in the process of saving these people. People, which is a thing you're meant to do as Catholics. It's like we're stewards of the earth, stewards of this planet, which means we should look after it and its people to so that we can to not sin, I guess. Sorry, I'm supposed to be good at this whole religion thing, but I'm really not today. Anyway, you see the point that I'm making here with the idea that although he's going along with the religion that he's part of, sure, but he's also he's at the line where he is breaking through, just like how he's on that very fine line with his no killing rule. It's like he's Satanist, which is the opposite of a Catholic, but he's also Catholic at the same time. And I really enjoy how that whole thing works, because he isn't a Satanist. Just want to make that clear. He is a Catholic, a very, very, very devout Roman Catholic. You could not find a more devout person than him. But the point, of course, of this is that he's basically this really really contrasting character with himself, which of course is a point that I've been emphasizing so far through this video, and it's something that I really, really enjoy about the character, is how well he contrasts and how he deals with his own problems in these really, really poor decisions that can lead to these awful outcomes. But it's wonderfully well written and makes it very complex character, which is very interesting. It's got all these layers. It's nothing like Rey or any of the other new sequel trilogy Star Wars characters, but that's another totally different video that I could speak about for ages and ages and murder so many people over. But anyway, so moving on from that, before anything satanistic actually does go down, I think it's also very important to bring into the fact that Daredevil, he never has really strayed from, again, about his religion, is how seriously he does actually take it, because something that you see in the start of the show is he goes to his confessions a lot in the show. He spends a lot of time with this priest, and this priest knows who he is, and he knows. And Daredevil sins a lot. He lies all the time to people to protect himself, especially in the comics when he gets outed all the time. He lies to protect his own identity. This is a sin in itself, and yet so he's always going to church, always repenting, or whatever you want to call it, to stop himself from going to hell, which shows you how he is seemingly very strong Catholic. Sorry, I just want to apologise now because my wording really isn't working right now. I'm not good at talking for really long periods of time without breaking and thinking. So yeah, that's a very bad thing. Anyway, my point is that something else that is actually very heavily linked into his religion is his actions with Professor Stephen Strange, Dr. Stephen Strange, who is practicing dark arts personing thing, which basically means that he practices in the dark arts, which is against Christianity. It's very heavily against the Christianity, and if you remember anything about English history or American history for that fact, you will know that there was a lot of witch burning from Christianity because of these supposed witches practicing dark arts. So it's a sin in itself that he's friends with Stephen Strange, and he coerces, I think it's coerces is the word, with him, because actually, there is the one very interesting Daredevil story, which is from the early 2000s. A lot of these stories are very interesting. Sorry, it's another thing I do is I say that. But where Daredevil went to see Stephen, and in order to check about if this baby he had was actually the Antichrist. That's a very good religious story that I could go on and on and on about. But the point being, of course, that it goes into detail of how he's interacting with Stephen Strange and his magic, and he even summons Mephisto, the devil himself. So he's interacting with effectively Marvel's Satan. Well, I guess Marvel's Satan is kind of Mephisto's son now, which is complicated, and Mephisto's son, I think it's his son, is very, very powerful, and we never need to talk about them because they are way too powerful, and I don't like them. Just how I don't like Elaine. Elaine's another super powerful DC character that I could do a video on at some point if you want me to. But anyway, I'm getting off topic here, sorry. Point of this whole thing is to talk about Daredevil, and it's a very interesting how he's willing to cross the line, for so many things. He's crossing his own religion, putting people over himself, which is actually a very strong Catholic, or just general thing you see in many religions. It can be seen in Buddhism, in I think it can be seen in Islam, and well, a lot of Judaism texts are based off of Old Testament Christianity, so I think you can see it in there, but I know it's some reference in Christianity and both for all forms of Christianity, like Quakers and Orthodox, etc. But especially Catholicism, as Catholicism is one of the most famous versions of Christianity, having been around the longest, I believe. Sorry, I might be getting my facts wrong here, but I'm trying to remember this off of just packing in thousands of bits of information for exams and then extracting the one thing that I didn't actually need to know for them. So information could all be wrong, if I'm apologising for that in advance. But yeah, it's this idea that he is breaking, or he's sinning to so that he can stop others from sinning, kind of, or sinning so others don't have to. If you want to look at it that way, it's just the basic concept is that Daredevil he goes against his religion to help others, or so that they may know, so that they won't have to do the same. So he's putting others ahead of himself, basically, which is this really It's a really interesting thing that links him with his own morality, because he doesn't believe he's that good of a person. He really doesn't. He doesn't see himself as like a very good person, and that's like comes up a lot because he just doesn't. He sees a lot of the things that he's done as bad, and he is quite bad generally. He isn't. He's not a good person. I wouldn't just say that, because he does have feelings. He's not like your, hey, I'm Superman and I America's dream and I've got no bad feelings for anyone. Woohoo! No, not at all. He has a lot of morally ambiguous issues, like his lover, well, like temporary lover, I guess, because she's dead. But anyway, point being, Karen Page, she did a lot of very questionable things that should have, if Daredevil or Matt Murdock was a very devout Christian, he should have basically, stayed away from her because of that. Like a lot of the stuff she did in around the period of Born Again, or just before that, where she got into drugs and not just drugs, like very serious, like drugs which caused the cancer that killed her later on. And the other, oh no, it wasn't actually cancer that was killing her. She had HIV, I think, from when she was working in the porn industry, which is actually when she sold Daredevil's. I think she sold Daredevil's identity during that time for drug money, and then Kingpin got hold of it. But he never actually did anything with it directly. He just used it to drive Daredevil mad inside. And actually, Daredevil's madness, that's a whole nother topic of his philosophy and morality and etc. And I just want to say now is I know this video is called The Philosophy of Daredevil, but I'm talking a lot more about his religion and stuff. But philosophy as a subject generally covers ethics, so ethical choices, moral choices, and then it can cover thematic concepts such as religion and how it can affect a person. So this is technically still the philosophy of Daredevil, but I think I am going to just stop talking about him and talk about how he is in a philosophical manner. So like what I was doing at the start and linking it all together now, because I've kind of gone over the two things separately. So let's just kind of mix them together. So basically, as we know already, Daredevil is a very morally ambiguous character. He is willing to go to whatever lengths, except from killing, to get what he needs to know. He will threaten people. He will scare the hell out of them if he has to. You see what I did there? I'm sorry, I've made too many hell puns in this video. I'll just stop now. I just did it for the hell of it, Okay, I will stop now, I promise. Anyway, like I was saying, he is very morally ambiguous, and it's a very big part of his character that he isn't a good person, and this whole idea of not being good links very well in with how he is a devil. He is supposedly going to go to hell according to his own religion. So he's aware of this, He doesn't just think, oh yeah, this doesn't matter, because you see it in I think it is in the first season of Daredevil. One of the first episodes, he goes. It starts with, no, it doesn't start with. Or there is a part in it where Daredevil goes, "Forgive me, Father, for I have it, and it's been too long since my last confession, and I have sinned," or something along those lines. Oh no, it wasn't. It was, "It's been too long. Forgive me, Father, I have sinned. It's been too long since my last confession." I think that was it. But anyway, those lines are pulled straight out of the Guardian Devil comics, which are in fact the ones with the Antichrist baby and Karen Page's death, etc. Which is a very weird read, quite a sad one. Black Widow's in it, and she totally wants Daredevil to get into a relationship with her in it, but he's just not having it, which is sad because she's hot and everything. But anyway, you guys didn't hear that, did you? Nah, not at all. So what we do know about Daredevil is he's this character that's he's built on this idea of not being good. He isn't supposed to be a good person, and it's like he knows he's sinned in the past, and it's something that everyone sees him as is a sin. Loads of people are like, beware these people. Well, yeah, you get the idea. And actually, a very specific instance of this is in the Netflix show, where Matt talks about this time when some old lady would go, beware the Murdoch kids. They've got the devil in them, And I think this really well links in. This links into his religion very well, as do many things that I'm talking about here. Of this idea that he is the devil, he is the everything bad about his religion, and he is this because of what he does for others. He's putting everyone first. It's not really utilitarianism, and it's definitely not deontological. I'm trying to think of what it is. There is definitely some sort of ism or logicilian or whatever you want to call it for what it is. Because he as a character he doesn't follow many rules really. He doesn't kill, and he doesn't really have an issue of stealing though. So of course he's like very much on the line, which is something I've said way too much this video, but I can't stress enough how Daredevil's actions as a physical person, like how he acts, is really, really strongly represents his own it represents him and his character, because he doesn't act like a good person a lot of the time. He makes these rash decisions that are based off of not well, really poorly developed thought processes like the ones going through my head right now. In fact, sorry, 1 second, I do have a book somewhere which is going to help me seriously well with this. Let me just go find it. Okay, there we go. This is going to be a lot better video now because I've got a book to help me out here. Where are we? There's a really good idea here that to do with his philosophy, and that is why doesn't he just kill his villains? And I've probably talked about his killing ethic way too much, but it's this idea that if he kills them, then he becomes as bad as them. It's very, very similar to Batman in this face. And I know a lot of people talk about Daredevil as being the Batman of Marvel, but he's really not. Batman is somewhere between Iron Man and Moon Knight, more like, because of how they used to Iron Man, this billionaire playboy with so much tech and no powers, and then Moon Knight is this mentally unstable, guy with a cool costume and loads of moon-orientated objects, like bat-orientated things. So yeah, he has a lot more to do with those characters than he has to do with Daredevil, and that's the point I just want to make, because those characters have very different moral sets than he does. But anyway, something that I do want to go for is his persona as Matt Murdock, because that's very interesting. The ethics behind being Matt Murdock and Daredevil and walking into a courtroom as he does. So let me just get to this idea of his law, how he acts within the world of the law, which is quite interesting because supposedly when you're walking into a courtroom, you're not holding back any secrets, are you? No, anyway, you're not. So this idea that if he is, he's holding back the secrets of him being Daredevil, he's a fugitive himself walking into a courtroom as a lawyer. As a lawyer, I'd just like to say that a legal representative is a fugitive, a criminal fugitive. That himself is ethically wrong. Ethically, you should not be walking into a courtroom, a room of justice, if you are a person who's committed injustices. I can't stress that enough, but it is morally wrong, very much so. I do not agree with that idea that you should be able to do that ever, and it's something that Daredevil does on a constant basis, and it really, really, really is not okay, and he does it again and again and again and again, and it really stresses the idea that he is not a good person. Daredevil is not good. He is not a hero. He really isn't. All he is someone out. Well, he's a hero, okay, I'll give him that, but he is not like a solid, good Superman-esque person. He is not good, okay? Yeah, I've said that too much, but he's not good, and he doesn't like killing. That's like, okay, good, video over, 2 points made. No, anyway. But this, how he can walk into the courtroom and he plays a lawyer or a person that brings justice, and he himself has committed so many injustices. It's almost like by bringing justice through the law, through the means of the law, is his own way of oh, for God's sake, sorry, 1 second, this noise is... Discord's just popping up, going crazy. I'm just going to go mute that real quick. Okay, good, there we go. Anyways... Oh, Christ. Yeah, anyways. See what I did there? Oh, Christ. Because, yeah, fine, I'm going to stop with the religious puns. Anyway, this idea that Daredevil he's a lawyer, but he's also a criminal or a vigilante, there is a lot of ethics behind it. I think Philosophy Tube and NerdSync covered something to do with the ethics of a superhero in a courtroom and Daredevil being a lawyer. Obviously, they've got actually like proper scripts and everything, and they're not just going off with a 4-point little plan that they drew on a whiteboard at last minute or something. So go watch their videos because they're both amazing channels. Along with I'll do a channel shout out at the end thing to different comic book channels that I watch when I'm done with this. Only half the universe will be... Okay, fine. Anyway, yeah, when I'm done, only half the universe will be left, and Daredevil will not. Yeah, you guys will hate me and Daredevil by the time this video is over because I'll have talked you out of him. Anyway, what I was originally going to say is that basically this idea that he's a lawyer and a criminal vigilante, it puts him at risk of losing his job on a daily basis. So he's risking everything. He's really not... He doesn't really fit into any specific categories because he puts first the people people he loves first, the rest of the world second, himself third, then all the bad people in the world fourth, which is this it doesn't really fit into many mentalities. I guess you could call it utilitarianism, as he does whatever benefits the most people in the way that he will if it doesn't benefit himself but it benefits the world as a whole, he will still do it. Like, he will take down the Kingpin if it means losing his life because it helps the world. He's going to do that. So he guess he's kind of utilitarianism, but he has priorities. If he could save Karen Page or New York City, chances are he would save Karen Page or Kirsten McDuffie or something. Kirsten plays a very big role later on around the more current era of Daredevil, whereas Karen's kind of like out of the picture because she's dead now. But yeah, a lot of the people, he puts the people he loved first, which is why he isn't really a utilitarianist character, but more of a situationist in a way, kind of. There is a correct term for what he is. He's somewhere between deontological, situationist, and utilitarian. So somewhere between the three of those things, but not very not deontological at all. My bad. He's just situationist and utilitarianism. He isn't at all a deontologist because they follow the rules and he doesn't at all. He doesn't follow any forms of rules, even in the court. He's breaking the law by even entering that room. It's like entering it's like Donald Trump going into a meeting about the state because he has business interests at hand, so technically he shouldn't be there. It's this very interesting idea that although that you're breaking the law by preserving your secrets. This is privacy, which is a very heavily stressed point by America's laws. And of course Daredevil lives within America. Your freedom comes with privacy, but it's something that he has to basically give up, but she doesn't, and it puts him at this very interesting point in his life where should he even be a lawyer, because isn't he at a position where he's biased because of his actions? Surely he'd be biased towards vigilantism and stuff, so technically he can't act in a fair manner within the court. But then again, you could counter such an argument with the idea that he's a defendant lawyer, which means he's meant to defend certain cases as best he can, and supposedly this bias would help him defending people like Moon Knight and the Punisher, etc., because of their their what's the word? Sorry. Yeah, because of their actions and vigilantes, and that's it. Anyway, but you could also argue that people like the Punisher aren't actually vigilantes; they're just killers because, well, what effectively what are they? They are killers. You know, they're killing. They're killing people for a living, which is kind of more like a mercenary. But Punisher is a very good person. He's whole another thing altogether, outside of the realms of Daredevil. Whole another thing that I wouldn't dare to touch, because I reckon if I got anything wrong in that, our editor would kill me. He'd physically murder me. I mean, he probably would anyway. But yeah, he would kill me more so than usual. Let's just say. But anyway, I really am running out of ways to stress points now, so I'm gonna talk about his insecurity, I think, a little bit, because he is very insecure. You know, he doesn't have anyone he can really go to, and he breaks down a lot, especially before Shadowland, where after Shadowland he begins to like build himself up, and then other people, the way that they hurt him is usually very heavily based on mental aspects. So they'll use different plots to break down his mentality, make him seem mad. One of the really good ones, of course, is by Mark Waid, when he tricks a villain called Coyote, who actually is drawing power from the Spot, and you guys who don't know the Spot, he draws power from the Dark Force, which is this weird thing, but he uses it to teleport a lot, and Coyote draws power from the Spot to basically make Daredevil think he's going mad by using this teleportation power to like kind of what's the word now? You know, like screw up his mind by making things appear and then disappear, and then everyone else thinks he's nuts. And then one serious case is when he does it with Daredevil's insane wife. And speaking of wives, love is something Daredevil is very good at, because that wife of his was supposedly getting a divorce, and she's insane, and ex-wife, I think now. I'm sorry, I'm not up to date on any comic book at all, not even Rogue and Gambit, and that's like only got 5 issues. But yeah, his romantic life and stuff, it really affects him as a character, because he really struggles to have these romantic relationships, because he feels like he's putting these people at risk, which is something I briefly mentioned earlier, I think. And if I haven't, you should probably just stop watching this video, because I'm rambling on. But my key points here is that Daredevil is a very philosophically unbalanced character, because he acts in good ways, or in very bad ways, for the betterment of other people, and it affects him very negatively. So he's like tearing himself down. You know, he's doing harm to himself, which is technically against Catholicism, in the way that thou shalt not kill, or love thy neighbour as thy neighbour love you. And if all of these things, you can reverse that previous one, love yourself as you love your neighbour. But if you don't, then what you're doing, you're basically hating yourself. So you shouldn't do that, is what it's saying. And he doesn't like himself that much all the time. He has a lot of problems, and he just pushes on through them. Like his childhood is another problem. I could go on and on and on and list all of these things that's led him to be this character who struggles mentally to stay sane all the time. You can see him struggling with sanity, and this itself makes him very morally divided over so many things, because he would kill so many people if he had the chance. And it's so easy to kill people. Something that Batman stresses a lot, especially in Under the Red Hood, the animated movie towards Red Hood about killing the Joker, is how it's so easy to kill them. So easy. And if you start, you just can't stop. You know, it's this idea that really is what's holding Daredevil back from killing. Because if he knows that as soon as he starts, he won't stop. You know, he'll become the Punisher, the thing he doesn't want to be. And you know he really doesn't want to be the Punisher from all of the conflict they have, all of this conflict, which shows how against killing he is, but how close he is to always breaking that line. And on that note of actually some good talking for once, I think it's time to finally finish up before I ramble on about any other stupid stuff that you don't want to hear. And thank you for actually staying with this so long if you're actually listening to this, because I don't think I could have listened to myself for that long talking. That was really difficult. I need to plan these videos better in the future. But now this is over, I'm going to cover a couple of little topics like reading for Daredevil, because this is kind of replacing Who Are They just for the moment, because this is a topic that I wanted to cover and just get out of my head because I need to get it done eventually, and maybe I'll redo it some other day when I can actually have a proper plan and something. But for now I can say I've done it, so I can go back to doing Who Are They's, and I don't have to feel like, no, you should be doing Daredevil. Speaking of Who Are They's, there is one person watching this video now thinking, where the hell is Who Are They, who is Frozone? And I can tell you, Who is Frozone is one hell of a hard video to do, considering Frozone has literally no easy, simple backstory outside of the Incredibles movie. So, I am trying to do that, and I haven't seen Incredibles 2 yet, so it's even harder, because I can't talk about that, really, because I don't want to spoil it for myself any more than I already have, and I'm not going to be doing that video until I have enough information to go off with Frozone 4, which is why it isn't out yet. And as for the who is Cassie Sandsmark, that is, I think I deleted it by accident, so when I was clearing out my computer a while ago, so I think I will be having to redo that. But as for the next video, will be next weekend, and it will probably be Who is Cassie Sandsmark, or Who is Frozone, or even, this one would be very good, I think, Who is Gambit? Yes, my second favourite Marvel character, you say. Oh yeah, and that brings me on to the next little thing that I'm going to talk about before I close this down, as I've gone on way too long already. It's called Star Wars, and basically it's a thing that is the most popular fandom on the planet of Earth, if you haven't heard of it. Yeah, anyway, Star Wars has roughly 1.4 billion fans now, which I think is safe to say. It's time that I start doing videos about it, because I love Star Wars, you know. Star Wars is my thing. It's a lot of people's thing, especially, I think, us, the four of us. Yeah, there is four of us, actually, my bad. One of us is supposed to be running the blog, but that's kind of very difficult, because WordPress generally hates us. They don't want to make it work. But the four of us, between us, our most common passion, our biggest passion is probably Star Wars. I don't know, because I'm saying that as a combined passion, because I know a lot of us love the comics, but because considering one of our members doesn't know anything about comic books and basically literally here for the Star Wars stuff, and Star Wars is my favourite thing ever in history, so yeah, anyway, Star Wars is a major thing for us, so we're going to be starting some coverage on that very soon, which I think is quite cool, and that may even start next weekend with a Who Are They Star Wars video, whoa, as well as probably another Who Are They DC or Marvel video, because I need to do a Marvel video. And just tell us what you want to see. Do you want to see more Who Are They? Do you want to see more of these philosophy type, breaking down a character's mentality and morality, etc., to see what they're like? I might try to plan them better next time. Just tell us what you want to see, and if this was a good thing, I might see if I can get a little poll set up in the top right hand corner right about now, to see if, and you can just tell me what you want if you press that, if you even watch this video. And I've just hit 500 megabytes of time, and by the time I convert, I'll be like a gigabyte, so I'm gonna end here. Thanks for watching, guys. Leave a like if you like the video, dislike it if you think I could have improved, leave a comment saying what I should have done better, subscribe if you like our stuff, and I will hopefully be speaking to you next weekend, or even in a couple of minutes if you're about to watch our third podcast. Anyway, adios, and I will see you later.